of culture, in terms of even free practice of his religion. To a great degree, to be honest, we have greater freedom in terms of practicing our deen here in South Africa, in a secular country, than most so-called Muslim countries, Muslim majority populations have. And you can imagine the state of frustration in those communities. Right? That's the one group. Then you have the second group of immigrants, people from the Middle East and North Africa who ended up in Europe looking for a better life. Whether it's in France, whether it is in Sweden, whether it's in London, England, whether it's in various other parts of the world, even America as well. And they expected, well, we were colonies, previous French colonies or Portuguese colonies or British colonies and so on. And these people colonized us for years, and we were under the yoke of their oppression. Right? We still have some degree of citizenry or some type of connection with these because we are Commonwealth countries and whatever it is. Looking for a better life, these same Arabs from the Middle East or North Africa moved away to Sweden. They moved away to Germany. They moved away to London, England. They moved various places. And they confronted with a similar thing. If they had a problem in their own country when there was unemployment, there was lack of education, lack of basic services, the leaders were corrupt, there was no so-called democratic system where you could elect your own leader, etc., and they had no prospects for the future in their own countries of birth, when they come to these countries, right, with the land of milk and honey, where the pavements are paved with gold, they find, hold on a minute, not only are we here disenfranchised on a greater level in terms of the fact that because we have no education, right, we are unemployed, right, we are not given skills, right, and we are treated as third-class citizens because we don't have any proper documentation or whatever it is there, they find themselves with a second problem. All of a sudden, they were comfortable in whatever practice of deen that they may have had in their countries, as basic as it may have been there, they still lived in primarily what was called an Islamic environment. They were not exposed to the excesses. They were not exposed to the debauched lifestyle. They were not exposed to the decadent way of the Western world to that degree wherein they see it staring them, on the face. Right? Wherever you walk and whatever it is there, you sing adverts for vice like you can't believe. And all of a sudden, when they're so accustomed to having their women in their homes, now if the women come out in hijab or whatever it is, they're being mocked, right? They are being, in one way or the other, victimized. They are going through this, they are going through that, and whatever it is. So they find themselves, double jeopardy, right? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now, when they are presented with these scenarios and it reaches a level of frustration, irritation, rejection, dejection, and you name every other negative emotion in the book, and then they get an advert like this, through social media, the internet, wherein these guys are advertising to you the ideal Islamic lifestyle. A guy who's looking for jobs, a guy who's looking for an education, a person who's looking to live his Islam, a person who's looking for a solution to all of his personal problems, thinking that, merely subscribing to the deen of Islam is a solution to my problems, and Allah will provide for me there. Open invitation, come, we have no borders. The only requirement for citizenship is La ilaha illallah, finished. So, it's extremely attractive. That's one group of people. Then you get the second group of people. The second group of people are those people who are living in countries like South Africa, in Britain and so on, who are born-bred South Africans, born-bred Americans, British or whatever it is. Right? They find themselves in a different condition. These people come from socio-economic, relatively stable backgrounds. Right? But they find themselves in a conundrum. And what is their conundrum? You know what? Look at the state and the condition of the Muslims of the world today. Look at the Muslims suffering in Gaza. Look at the Muslims suffering in Kashmir. Look at the Muslims suffering here. Look at the fact that our leaders are paper tigers. Right? Toothless tigers who can do nothing. They have all the money, but with the degree of corruption that they have and whatever it is there, right? They're doing nothing for the Muslim world. And there comes a point wherein they reach a level of frustration as well. And they become angry. And let me tell you something, and this is one of the symptoms you must look for, particularly in youth. When I mean youth, I don't mean 15-year-olds only. I mean people from the ages of 15 till up until 35 or 40 for that matter. Right? And this is one of the symptoms. When you see the youth in your family becoming primarily obsessed, I'm using the word obsessed, preoccupied on social media, reading articles, hearing videos, or watching videos, or MP3s, or whatever it is there, about the state of the Muslim world and how terrible the state is and how bad things are in Palestine, and they are presented with these gory images and the scary things and whatever it is, if you see the youth, right, engaging in a more than obsessive type of practice in terms of being exposed to this all the time, be very careful. Because you know why? This exposure to these images, to these stories, to these sound bites and so on, they first create in you doubt. Then it comes to a level of frustration, then anger, then a degree of helplessness, then what can I do? And then you start looking for solutions as a committed Muslim when you are presented, and this is the issue that Muslims in the Western world, in Western countries, secular countries face, when you are presented with a barrage, right, of insults, right, and accusations against the very deen that you have been brought up with, that you've lived all your life, and this is your Islam. You get tired at one point or the other in terms of responding to people and in terms of defending what you believe in and so on and so on and so on. And when you see that the leadership, whether it is political or religious, is not supporting the manner in any way and not giving effective solutions there, you go out looking for solutions. And anyone who gives to you and presents to you an avenue whereby you can, give vent to your pent-up frustration, when you can actively involve in becoming a member or an agent of change, will become very attractive to you. Why? I can't go to Saudi Arabia. I want to get citizenship. I can't go to Gaza. I can't go there. And the problem is, and this is one of the biggest issues that our youth are facing, where the youth can, right, and people can make effective input, right, into solving or being part of the solution rather than being part of the problem. That's the part that they will ignore. Anything to do something constructive, they will ignore. They would rather go to the most extreme and go towards that which is destructive, which is war. No, let's take up arms first. Let's take up arms first. That's jihad for us. Every other jihad is ignored at the expense of the one which requires you to take up arms. And that is the attraction. Now, when this attraction is presented to both these groups here, what do they not see? That's the question. What they don't see is this fact here, that they see on one side, this is Islam, this is it, this is how it is. You know what, let's get away from it all. We'll live the utopian Islamic lifestyle in the Islamic state and so on. What they don't see in all those fancy adverts and this marketing and through their frustration and through this mental fog that they find themselves in, is the fact that this so-called Islamic state there, as part of its modus operandi, right, engages in abductions, engages in rapes of young children, right? Engages in decapitating people, taking their heads off there and hanging it onto railings for people to see. It engages in mass killings of Coptic Christians. It engages in abductions and the complete control of the Yazidi groups, regardless of what the belief is. You take them over completely, you turn the children into slaves, right? And rape them willy-nilly, and you call this deen? Women are whipped if they don't put on hijab and niqab properly as per requirement. What they don't tell you is that the moment you enter into the Islamic State there and become a citizen of the so-called Islamic State, it's fard ayn for you. Fard ayn for you. I'm using these words to engage in jihad. And what does that mean? You're a citizen of the Islamic State. No problem, sir. On one hand, we'll give you the Quran. The other hand, we'll give you the Kalashnikov. That's a requirement. You've got to become militant. You got to become militarized. You got to be part of the Islamic army, because without an Islamic army there, we can't fight the infidels. And if you thought you're going to have freedom of religion, well, you got to re-gauge your freedom of religion, because what they don't tell you is only our way or the highway. So if you come from a certain madhab, whether you're Hanafi, Shafi'i, Hanbali or Maliki, to a certain degree they will tolerate it. Eventually, their supremacist, exclusivist thinking ideology is going to supersede whatever you believe in or whatever you've subscribed to. So if you're Hanafi and Shafi'i, eventually they tell you, you don't need to be a mukhallid. What are you following madhab for? Because in our aqidah, in our ideology, there is no such thing as madhab. This is also a form of religious tyranny that has been imposed upon us. And this by far, and I'm going to get to it just now, is by far the most insidious methodology that they utilize. You know why? Youth who know very little about Islam, right, and have just been exposed to Islam in terms of madrasa and so on and maktab and whatever it is there, right? When they reach a certain age and they're being confronted with questions at university about the fundamentals of their deen and they can't answer it there, they go out looking for answers. And it's interesting that the people who are most inclined towards ISIS don't come to realize that the very things that ISIS uses in terms of insidious ideology has been brought about by their exposure to the Western world. So where they feel that there is freedom of thought, freedom of expression, right, and freedom to ask questions within the current Islamic condition that you are in, right, asking too many questions, you will know, is frowned upon. And our ulama need to change that mindset. Because you know what is happening? If you're not giving the answers, if you're not being responsible enough to be able to give them something there which will give them tatma'innul qulub alternative, that's a reality. So what happens is that they go out there looking on the internet, and all of a sudden, and this is the first step, remember, recruitment at ISIS is the last step. The process starts off way before that. And how it starts off? When the person starts looking for answers. When they start looking for answers, you know what happens? The first thing that they do for a questioning mind who's already been brought up in a Western secular environment where he is taught how to question, is that they start poking holes in the Islam that you've practiced all your life. Listen to me very carefully. They start poking holes and they start asking questions. Remember, initially, it won't be something which will like shock you. You know, it's a slow poison. You know, like khannas, min sharril waswas al khannas. You know, the slinkering whisperer. He'll whisper one thing into your ear and he'll hey, what are you talking about? And he'll come back again. And he'll come back again. He'll say, what is this? I'll give you an example, right? You know, making dua after salah is a bid'ah. You know, it wasn't practiced by the Prophet ﷺ in that form. You know, he didn't pick up his hand in dua. There is no authentic hadith which tells you this. Now all of a sudden, why? What is he talking about? All this while, I'll give you one example. All this while, all my life, in every masjid I went, we made dua. Now all of a sudden, I'm being told that it's not in the authentic hadith. Can you show it to me? Now the poor guy doesn't know any better. So the guy said, look here, there's the authentic hadith. This is what the Prophet did authentically. What you are doing is following da'if hadith. You are following the teaching of the fuqaha, the jurists. And what do? Eventually, like that, they make you question every single other thing about your religion. And what do? Subconsciously, they give you agency. In terms of saying, what you taking your Islam from your ustad, from your apa, your maulana, and then the mufti, and then from Jamiyat, and then from the Council of International Ulama, and you're following the madhab of Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i. There's the Quran, there's your liberator. Pick it up, read it, and make up your own mind. These people have been deluding you. You have control. So they first grant you, so to speak, intellectual religious freedom. Or they promise you intellectual religious freedom. We give you, and this is the tagline, authentic Islam. Undiluted, pure Islam from the sacred sources of Quran and Sunnah. And if you want, read it for yourself. And they'll present it to you. A guy who doesn't know any better, who knows no usul al-tafsir, who knows no fiqh, who knows no sarf, who knows nahu, who knows nothing about anything, he's just going to pick it up. You know, Bukhari padke Bukhar chadta hai. Really? And that's what they will do. And eventually the person says, yeah. And you know, eventually what happens? You will see it. The person will start informally rebelling against the established that he used to practice before. No, there's no need to do this anymore. No. What's this for? Eventually, the person's mindset is completely in that direction. And by that time, the person hasn't even realized it there, right? He's been afflicted by the virus of ISIS. And all the symptoms are there. He looks at everything in terms of religion with suspicion. Are these guys speaking the truth here? No, they're duping us there. Let me check it up in the Quran. It's not in the Quran here. It's not in the hadiths here. This is not what Imam Bukhari said. Not understanding. No, nothing. Eventually what happens? Watch, you'll see the signs. The person becomes very suspicious about religion. He starts following a different perspective, slowly but surely. Right? Then you'll see the beards become bigger and so on there. Then you see all of a sudden they become preoccupied with religion, listening to a certain group of people only. Right? Eventually, before you know it, you're gone. You're gone. I'm just giving you a synopsis. I'm not giving you a detailed analysis of the situation. But really, that's how it begins. Now, Now comes the question that how do you know if your child or a family member of yours has been afflicted by the ISIS virus? You'll see symptoms, right? Different geographical locations, your environment plays a major role in how you're going to react to these issues. But some are one or two things. Firstly, it's not something which is homogeneous. Please understand this, right? People, it's not only from poor socio-economic backgrounds that people are being attracted to it. No. It comes from those people who belong to the upper class groups and whatever it is there. What are the reasons for them being motivated? Number one, they see the so-called decadent lifestyle that they've been brought up with, right? And they see this type of lifestyle that my parents are leading there. On one side there, I'm reading Quran and I'm hearing all these bayans and everything there. On the other side there, I see this type of lifestyle from my parents. They start rebelling. They say, this is not my Islam. This is not my deen. They may not articulate it there, but you will see, my father is talking about this and that, everything's like there. Salatul Maghrib is on there, he's busy watching soccer. They see the hypocrisy within the home. And they start looking for so-called kosher and pure alternatives outside of their ambit of association. And they start looking for it. And here, there's the people advertising, we are giving it to you, brother. Come to us. We will give you the deen which will give you salvation in this world and in the hereafter. That's one. The second thing is, and this is a fact, amongst our youth, and especially our young girls, the romanticized version, right, of being a runaway bride, right, to a jihadi Joe, and she'll become jihadi Jaina, right, is very, very attractive. Why? They think they're living in this romanticized world when she will be in hijab, but they'll still be holding hands underneath there with a Kalashnikov, on the side and so on. So, my husband is like, same thing. What? Now they don't want the guy with the big muscles anymore. It's still there, but he must have the muscles. He must have the muscle with the banduk and everything, but he must have a topi and a beard on there. Then he becomes justified. Right? This romanticized version, which women are looking for, they find it very attractive. Right? Sometimes they call it the Stockholm syndrome. I'm sure you've heard of the Stockholm syndrome, right? When you become attracted to your captor. These are genuine psychological conditions. 2, 3, right? The social media it's scary what it does. Do this. I conducted the experiment on myself. Right? Spend the day just looking at very scary, gory images of people who've been martyred in the war zones, 1. Read some of the hate speech which is spewed out on the internet against Islam, against the basic tenets you believe in, right? And where questions are raised, right? To a point when if you don't know Islam on an advanced level, you won't be able to respond to it, I guarantee it. Right? Expose yourself to all the destruction and the mayhem and the havoc these so-called capitalist countries have wreaked upon the Muslim world, destroying their cultures, destroying their economies, destroying their lives in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. Spend an entire day sifting through the internet, reading these articles, and by the evening, guaranteed, you'll be depressed, you'll be frustrated, you'll be angry, and you'll want to do something. And if this exposure continues unabated for a period of time there, especially with the josh of youth, it's a powder keg. It's a powder keg. Really. Then you get those people who have already become professionals, right? They've become professionals. They've already chartered accountants, they're quantity surveyors and so on, and they have an education. They regard themselves as being educated, which gives them, they feel, the license also to be able to expose themselves to Islamic scripture. And all of a sudden, based on the Western secular education they will try and become experts in Islamic studies and Islamic sciences. What happens? They see this ISIS as a destination lifestyle. The way people went on a scramble to buy apartments in Dubai, right? And get the temporary residency of India, and ran away to Australia, and so on, the dual citizenships and whatever it is there. This is a destination, lifestyle destination. Why? Islamic way, Islamic lifestyle. I mean, really, we don't need this riba in our lives. All good intentions, good intentions, but misdirected. And because, and this is a critical flaw, instead of exposing themselves to various opinions, various perspectives, different ways of thinking, they decide to make conclusions for themselves, which they regard at best as being an educated guess. Khalas. Really, I can go on. We have a nikah here right now. I want to give you a few solutions. You know why? Because we need to give our youth these solutions, right? Firstly, for the youth and for anybody who feels, you know what, I feel helpless, man. I don't know what to do for my deen. Firstly, understand one thing and comfort yourself with this. You did not start the confusion. Nor are you personally responsible for changing the situation. You're not personally responsible. And you can't take it upon yourself solely to be the agent of change. You can't. You can't. If, however, and you should, and every one of us should be, if you want to make some type of constructive effort in trying to be a part of the solution rather than being part of the problem, then there are various other avenues. And the final, not even permissible currently, avenue, worst case scenario in case of emergency, is taking up arms. Remember, it's not the first option, it's the final, when everything else has completely failed. That's the final option. But there are other options as well. Firstly, become constructive for your deen, not destructive for your deen. And how to become constructive there? If you want to help out there, go there and dedicate yourself to deen. Ya Allah, I'm acquiring a skill, I'm acquiring an education there to become helpful for my deen. That doesn't mean you have to become a Maulana. Right? Become a psychologist and render your services in therapy, right? And trauma counseling for those people who've been traumatized in the Muslim world. How many patients you want? You won't cope. You won't cope. 1. 2. Any skill, whether it's medicine, whether it is emergency medicine, whether it's plumbing, whether it's environmental affairs, anything which has to do with politics, anything, even in terms of first aid, learn a basic skill beyond your career and be able to impart this as a volunteer jihad on your part to those countries which may be in need of sanitation, sustainable development, water, basic need, how to purify water, right? How to be an assistant on how many career options do you want to give you? How many skills do you want? You can just use your own imagination. Everything will help. 1. Number 2, right? If you are provided educational opportunities, take advantage of them. We have plenty of bursaries which are dished out in this country for anyone who wants to study any constructive science, anything, plenty of it. People can't complain that we have lack of educational opportunities in this country and lack of bursaries and whatever it is, because alhamdulillah, our community is an extremely charitable one, right? And we are asking for those people who want to volunteer for the sake of Islam to come to us, come to the organization and say, look, you know what, I want to study politics. I want to study political theory, political analysis. I want to become an environmental officer. I want to become an expert in economics. I want to know the capitalist system. I want to bring it together, Islamization of discipline. I want to do that there. I still have an open offer to anybody who wants to study political science or get anything to the political field, because we need to have people who understand the current politics and how to deal with it. Very few people have taken it up. Very few people have taken it up because, we want the safe careers, you understand? Where it has the most amount of money and least amount of responsibility. Take advantage of the educational opportunities. Number 3, contribute in a meaningful way to the current discourse about Islam. Use your Twitter accounts, you're using it anyway, right? Use your Twitter accounts, use your Facebooks, use your whatever it is that everyone is using it. Let's not sit there and talk about the fiqh of and the permissibility and non-permissibility of the issue. Use that thing constructively, right? Not by just sending, some inspirational message. May Allah bless you on this blessed day and may the nur, mashallah, Juma Mubarak and everything. Let's not talk about the fiqh of Juma Mubarak. That's another story. When we become involved in, what I call jurisprudential hair splitting. Jurisprudential hair splitting. And we want to know why our youth are not listening to our leadership. They're still talking about Yajuz, La Yajuz on furu'at. On furu'i masail we are fighting about. Academic barbros, I call them. Use these platforms, right, to be able to present a positive image about Islam. Right? There are so many people out there who are tweeting, doing this, doing that, anti-Islam campaign, anti-Islamophobic campaigns or whatever it is there. Create your own, be part of those tweets there. And whenever you see a tweet like that, respond to it in an intelligent manner with a specific Quranic verse, not only being defensive, but being constructive. We have a tendency to be always on the back foot. You know what? Sometimes offense is the best form of defense. Right? You need to push it to them, and you need to know your onions. Go to those scholars there who've done the work there, and take quotes from them. Just cut and paste. It makes a big difference. I'm just giving you a few examples. Number 4, right, is that yes, right, for our youth there who got nothing to do, and I promise you, what you call it, idle hands are the devil's handiwork. And now what has happened? Literally, the devil's handiwork is this. This is the devil's handiwork today. Wallahi, I'm serious about it. This is the devil's handiwork. What's happening? That's all we've got. Right? If your children are bored stiff, engage them in some constructive activity. If they want to make a difference in the community, tell them, why are you starting there? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, Anna rajulan sa'ala an-nabiy sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ayyul islami khayr? Which practice of Islam is best? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, tut'imu ta'am. He said, feeding of food. Poverty alleviation. Why isn't the Muslim world involved in alleviating poverty? That's the best practice of Islam according to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih al-Bukhari. What? We've resolved the problem of poverty alleviation. Okay? Join movements that humanize Muslims. That we Muslims are not, a group of, one-way thinking. Muslims only believe in the fundamentals of Islam. Muslims contribute nothing to art. Muslims contribute nothing to culture. Muslims contribute nothing to literature. Muslims contribute nothing to education. Muslims contribute nothing to anything which is, what we call the humanities. We don't contribute to that. Why? No, we are too busy sitting inside the masjid making subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Thank God the ulama and the Muslims of yesteryear and the previous eras there, whose glory we bask in, right, didn't think like that. Really. Right? I'm not supportive of the Taj Mahal either, nor am I supportive of that massive, grotesque expansion in these Middle Eastern countries, right, at the expense of basic needs of people. But at the very least, it is a nod to the professionalism and the skills of the artisans who worked on those buildings, of how much the Muslims contribute. At the very least, you can look at it like that, okay? Join anti-war movements, lobby groups, to lobby the case of the Muslim Ummah out there. We need it desperately, right? And also, become part of these political groups in this country. You can see the xenophobia taking place, right? And don't be surprised, you've heard this before. The Indians of Indian origin are next. We need to strategize about these matters here. Allah give us tawfiq and hidayah, inshallah.
We are the Muslim Ummah.
Alhamdulillah, 1 in 5 people in the world is a Muslim. But have we considered that 4 out of 5 people may die without Islam? 4 out of 5 may never get the chance to read the glorious Holy Quran. Become a lifetime partner with the Islamic Propagation Center International Dawah Quran Project and help bring real solutions to the 4 out of 5 people searching for answers. By sponsoring a Holy Quran, you give the gift of life, real life. IPCI, Dawah Quran Project. It's time to get involved.
Call IPCI now. IPCI, encircling the globe with the message of Islam.
نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم رسوله النبي الأمين المكين الحنين الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك إن ذلك من عزم الأمور صدق الله العظيم وبلغنا رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Most respected ulama, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, with the grace of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are witnessing the first Juma of Ramadan al-Mubarak. May it be one of 4 more, inshallah ta'ala. And we hope, inshallah ta'ala, that Allah accepts all our ibadat in this holy month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala. As I had discussed, today I'm going to complete the discussion that I had commenced with about 3 weeks ago in terms of the challenges facing the elders and some steps that need to be taken to protect the elderly in our community and the older generations in our community, and to continue with the traditions and the values that Islam espouses, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I commenced with the discussion in terms of some of the challenges facing the elderly and the elders in our community, wherein parents in particular who've made a considerable financial and emotional investment in their children are not reaping the expected dividends and rewards of their investment in their children. We discuss some of the aspects and some of the consequences of this and the lifestyles that parents have to now, almost lower themselves to, and the emotional as well as personal trauma and difficulties that the elders undergo because there is no continuity of the tradition, which is an Islamic and obviously Quranic tradition of the rights, right, and the position and the status of parents. And this is becoming a major issue, not only locally, but globally as well. And we also discussed last week some of the symptoms, why this has come about, and how maybe today's modern day parents are as much to blame for the condition that they could possibly find themselves in as well in 20 years from now, simply because they themselves have abandoned the Quranic directive and the prophetic lifestyle, wherein the very foundational basis of a family centers around parents, and not in today's Western-oriented society where the family centers around the child. Islam does not have a child-oriented family. In Islam, the family is a parent-oriented family. And we discussed quite a few of the aspects there as to some of the symptoms, or rather some of the causes as to why there's been this definite shift in lifestyle choices, as to what parents make, and invariably it comes down and trickles down to the children themselves now, who feel that they have their own lives to live, they have their own things to look forward to, they are more career-oriented, they are more lifestyle-oriented, they are more oriented towards enjoying life, as opposed to taking on the responsibilities and fulfilling the duties which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained for them. Today, inshallah ta'ala, I want to discuss some of the solutions to this growing disease in the Muslim community. But before that, let me give you a few ideas as to where I'm going with this, so that you will understand that this is not something that is just merely, someone crying wolf out there. There was a survey conducted by a New York marketing and communications company called JWT in America. And they did a very wide study of lifestyle and consumer choices in America. And they came up with a startling discovery, in that compared to 40 or 50 years ago, when people were asked what would be the fundamentals in terms of fulfilling the American dream. You know the American dream? What would be the fundamental? What do you think are the most 2 key factors in the fulfillment of the American dream? 40 to 50 years ago, people said what there was needed for them to fulfill the American dream were 2 things: faith and family. This is America. Faith and family, 40 years ago, were the fundamentals for the fulfillment of the American dream. By 2015, it moved away from faith and family to fame and fortune. See the difference? Faith is out of the door. Family is out of the door. What is being replaced by? What will be the fulfillment of your American dream? Fame and fortune. When they conducted a study, they found out that 58% of respondents said becoming wealthy was the key to the fulfillment of the American dream. 54% said social recognition and status were a big part of what people want today. And almost a quarter of them said what they were seeking, and a very big part of their dream, was to become famous. That's what it is. Now, I know these are American statistics, but in view of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ had already predicted that we will follow the Romans and the Jews step by step, step by step, step by step, in everything, and ape them, right? To a point, if they're going to a hole, we'll end up going into a hole there. I want to use this standard here in terms of our local as well as our global Muslim community. Right? If you ask modern day parents, the modern day current parents, what are your American dreams? What do you think are the fundamentals for you acquiring your dream life? Chances are they will tell you fortune and fame. Whereas 40 years ago, if you ask those parents, they would have told you faith and family. I don't need to do statistics to tell you this. You are aware of it right now because you're living in these communities. You are aware of what are the priorities in life, what people give priority to, what they regard as most valuable, as most important. And this is what is happening in our community today. And we're going to ask ourselves, what's going to happen in the future? Now, let me tell you one more thing. We're living in a modern, technologically advanced world. Everything is on instant. Today, the biggest issue is that people suffer from what they call lifestyle envy. It's a term that sociologists have coined. They call it lifestyle envy. You envy the lifestyle of the other people. Before, if you wanted to see how the other part of the world lived or whatever it is, you had to go out and do it and so on. Today, in an instant generation, on Instagram, you have instant, what I call picture envy. Why? The moment you're having a fabulous event or something happened there, you just post it on Instagram. You put a couple of nice filters to it and everything there, and you gloss it up, and you make your lifestyle and your life look great. So in seconds, everyone who's part of your circle and group sees the life that you are leading, where you are, what you've bought, what you're experiencing, what you're doing, and this and that and everything. And what happens after that as a consequence? You have what they call lifestyle envy. And today, keeping up with the Joneses has been taken to a different level altogether. Okay? There is one more thing which they attribute to this, and they are saying that there is a word which is called relative deprivation. You know, before we thought someone who was deprived was a person who didn't have basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, this, that, and everything. Today, deprivation has gone to lower levels of depravity. What do I mean by that? Today, all of a sudden,